fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The first loop slammed into me like a storm, a sudden rush of cold air and crushing weight that stole my breath before I could even register the sound of the door slamming shut behind me. Jace's calloused hand snapped around my throat, his fingers digging into the soft flesh of my neck as if he were branding me with his fury. The scent of cedarwood and raw sweat flooded my nostrils, mingling with the metallic tang of my own blood that seemed to rise from the wound in my throat. Heat radiated from his broad chest, the rough rasp of his stubble grazing my cheek, while the cold tiles of the classroom pressed into my spine, a reminder that the world outside this nightmare still existed, indifferent to my plight. "You don't belong here, Leah," he snarled, his voice a low vibration that thrummed against my ear, sending shivers through every nerve. My heart hammered, a frantic drum against my ribs, but his grip was iron, my struggle futile. I could feel the pulse of his thumb against my carotid, each beat a cruel metronome counting down the seconds I had left to breathe. As darkness edged my vision, his triumph lingered like a bitter aftertaste, a flavor that would haunt the back of my throat long after the loop reset. The second loop burst open with a different kind of fire. This time the classroom was empty, the rows of desks bathed in the soft amber glow of late afternoon sun filtering through high windows. I was hidden behind the bleachers, my back pressed against the cold metal, my breath shallow and ragged. Alex found me there, his ink-stained fingers tracing the curve of my jaw with a tenderness that felt like a promise and a threat all at once. His fingertips were warm, the ink from his latest sketch still dark on his skin, leaving faint smudges that smelled faintly of turpentine and rain. His lips met mine in a velvet soft kiss, his tongue demanding, exploring, leaving a trail of scorching sugar on my tongue. The heat of his breath brushed my ear, a possessive murmur that sent a cascade of shivers down my spine. "You're getting warmer," he whispered, his voice low and intoxicating, each word a spark that ignited the ache deep within me. The world dissolved around us, the bleachers fading into a blur as his hands roamed, memorizing the rise and fall of my chest. I could feel the rhythm of his heartbeat against my back, a steady drum that steadied my own frantic pulse. I was left breathless, craving the lingering heat of his touch even as the darkness closed in again. The loop reset, and the classroom snapped back into its sterile, fluorescent-lit reality. I could still taste the lingering sweetness of his kiss, a phantom flavor that clung to my tongue like a secret. By the third loop, the pattern was no longer a random cruelty, it was a twisted cage. The hallway outside the classroom stretched endlessly, lockers lining the walls like silent witnesses. On the 189th repeat, a shard of ice pressed against my throat, pulsing with a cold command that vibrated through my teeth. "Untie your left shoe, ignore Jess, wait for the sparrow." My pulse raced, a frantic drum against my ribs as I obeyed, feeling the thin line between obedience and rebellion tingle under my skin. The leather of my shoe slipped free, the cool air of the hallway brushing the exposed skin of my ankle. The sparrow arrived, a fleeting shadow, a single feather drifting into my palm, its weight a promise of change. Its black plumage glistened with dew, each droplet catching the fluorescent light and scattering it like tiny stars. I turned, heart pounding, to find Alex waiting, his eyes dark with unspoken longing. He stepped forward, his hand warm against the chill of the ice, and whispered, "This time we break it together." The air between us crackled, the scent of cedar and ink mingling with the sweet heat of his skin. I felt his fingers trace the scar Jace had left on my throat, not as a wound, but as a reminder of the fire that still burned within me. Jace appeared in the doorway, his silhouette framed by the flickering torchlight that seemed to have materialized out of nowhere. He stared at us, his hazel eyes flickering between fury and something softer, a flicker of respect perhaps. "You think you can rewrite the rules," he growled, but his voice wavered, betraying a hint of curiosity. The torchlight threw his shadow across the stone floor, making the room feel ancient, as if we were standing in a forgotten cathedral of power. I lifted my chin, feeling the weight of every loop, every kiss, every breath. "No," I said, my voice steady, "I'm done being a pawn." The heat from Alex's body surged into me, his hand sliding down my back, grounding me. Jace's grip loosened, the iron around my throat easing as if the very air sensed my resolve. I could feel the faint thrum of magic in the stone, a low hum that seemed to respond to my declaration. In that suspended moment, the room seemed to pulse with possibility. The sparrow fluttered from my palm, soaring toward the cracked window, its wings scattering shards of light across the stone floor. The cycle cracked, the echo of endless death fading into a new rhythm, when I could write with my own hands, guided by the heat of two men who dared to love me fiercely. I stepped forward, feeling the cool stone beneath my feet, the lingering heat of Alex's kiss on my lips, and the ember of Jace's fury in my chest. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, I was the author of my own story. The next loop began not with violence, but with a soft rustle of parchment. I found myself in the library, rows of towering shelves filled with ancient tomes that smelled of dust and forgotten spells. Sunlight filtered through stained glass, painting the floor in a kaleidoscope of colors. My heart still pounded, but the rhythm was different now, steady, purposeful. I could hear my own breathing, the sound of my pulse echoing in my ears like a drumbeat. Alex was already there, perched on a wooden stool, his ink-stained fingers dancing across a vellum map. He looked up as I approached, his eyes softening. "You made it," he said, his voice a low hum that seemed to vibrate through the very walls. "I've been waiting for you." I felt a surge of warmth spread through my chest, a feeling that was part relief, part anticipation. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He smiled, a slow, genuine curve of his lips. "We find the source of the loop, the one thing that ties us all together." He gestured to a large, leather-bound book on the table, its cover etched with a sigil of intertwined serpents. "This is the Chronicle of Echoes. It records every iteration, every choice, every consequence." I reached out, my fingertips brushing the cool leather. The moment my skin made contact, a flash of images flooded my mind, scenes of Jace's fury, Alex's tender kisses, the sparrow's feather, the endless corridors of the school, the taste of blood, the scent of cedar, the feel of ink on skin. It was overwhelming, but also illuminating. I could see the threads that bound us, the invisible strings that pulled us back into the same patterns. "Look," Alex said, pointing to a page illuminated with a single line of silver ink. "The loop is anchored to a promise made in blood and fire. It's a pact, Leah. One that was forged when we first stepped into this place." My mind raced, the memory of Jace's grip, the scar on my throat, the way his hand had once felt like iron. Those were not just acts of cruelty. They were symbols, markers of a contract I had never consented to. I felt a sudden surge of anger, then a deeper, more complex feeling, a need to understand, to reclaim. "Jace," I whispered, the name tasting like ash on my tongue. "What did you want from me?" He stepped out from the shadows, his silhouette framed by the flickering torchlight that seemed to have followed us from the hallway. His hazel eyes were no longer just fury, they held a glint of something else, perhaps regret, perhaps admiration. "I wanted you to see the fire within you," he said, his voice softer than before, yet still edged with steel. "To understand that strength does not come from surrender." I felt a strange calm settle over me, as if the storm inside my chest had finally found a center. "And you think you've been cruel?" I asked, my tone steady. He shook his head. "Cruelty is a word we give to what we do not understand. I was trying to protect you from a fate worse than this loop." He reached out, his hand hovering just above my throat, not to choke, but to trace the scar with reverence. "You have a fire that can burn away the darkness, Leah, but you must learn to wield it." Alex stepped forward, his hand finding mine, his fingers interlacing with mine in a grip that felt like a promise. "We'll help you," he said, his voice a low murmur that seemed to vibrate through the stone. "Together." The sparrow, which had perched on the windowsill, fluttered down and landed on Alex's shoulder, its black feathers ruffling in the gentle breeze that seemed to come from nowhere. It cocked its head, as if listening to a secret only it could hear. I closed my eyes, inhaling the mixture of cedar, ink, and old paper. The scent filled my lungs, grounding me. When I opened them, I saw the world not as a series of loops, but as a tapestry of possibilities. The Chronicle of Echoes glowed faintly, its pages turning on their own, each turn revealing a new path. "Let's break it," I said, my voice firm. "Let's write our own story." Alex smiled, his eyes shining with fierce devotion. "Together." Jace nodded, a hint of respect softening his features. "Together." We placed our hands on the book, the ink on Alex's fingers mixing with the blood that still stained Jace's palm. A surge of energy pulsed through the stone floor, up through our legs, into our hearts. The sparrow flapped its wings, sending a cascade of light across the room. The sigil of serpents on the cover began to unravel, each coil loosening, each thread of the loop snapping. The sound was like 1,000 bells ringing in unison, a chorus of freedom. The air crackled, and the walls of the library seemed to breathe, exhaling centuries of trapped magic. When the light faded, the book lay open on a blank page. The Chronicle of Echoes had been emptied, its power broken. The loop was no more. We stood there, three silhouettes against the stained glass, the sparrow perched between us, its eyes bright with the promise of new beginnings. The next morning the school felt different. The corridors were alive with the chatter of students, the clatter of lockers, the distant hum of a bell. I walked down the hallway, my steps confident, my head held high. The scar on my throat was still there, a reminder of the past, but it no longer throbbed with pain. It was a mark of survival. Alex caught up to me, his hand slipping into mine, his fingers warm and steady. "Ready for class?" he asked, his voice playful. I smiled, feeling the heat of his skin against mine. "Always." Jace appeared a few steps ahead, his posture relaxed, his eyes scanning the crowd. He gave a small nod as he passed, a silent acknowledgement of the truce we had forged. I felt a strange kinship with him now, a respect born from shared struggle. In the classroom, the teacher began to speak about ancient myths, about heroes who broke curses and forged their own destinies. I listened, my mind drifting back to the night we shattered the loop. The words resonated, each syllable a reminder that stories are not fixed, they are fluid, shaped by those who dare to rewrite them. When the bell rang, I gathered my books, feeling the weight of the ink-stained pages in my bag. Alex slipped a small, feather-shaped charm into my palm, a token of the sparrow, a reminder that we had broken free. "Whenever you feel lost," he whispered, "just remember the feather, it's our promise." I pressed the charm against my heart, feeling its coolness against my skin. The feather was light, yet it carried the weight of our journey. Later that day, after classes, we met in the courtyard where the old oak tree stood, its branches sprawling like arms reaching for the sky. The sparrow landed on a low branch, its black feathers glistening in the late afternoon sun. Jace joined us, his presence calm, his eyes reflecting the amber light. "We should talk about what comes next," he said, his voice steady. Alex squeezed my hand, his thumb brushing the feather charm. "We have a chance now," he said, "a chance to build something real." I looked at the sparrow, then at the two men who had become my anchors. "I want to learn," I said, my voice firm. "I want to understand the magic that binds us, the power that once held us captive. I want to protect it, not be bound by it." Jace nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Then we teach you." The three of us sat beneath the oak, the leaves rustling above us like a soft chorus. The sparrow hopped from branch to branch, its movements graceful, its eyes bright. We spoke of spells, of ancient runes, of the balance between fire and ink, of how love could be a weapon as sharp as any blade. Hours passed, the sun dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold. The world felt alive, each breath a promise of possibility. When night fell, we returned to the library, the Chronicle of Echoes now a blank canvas. Alex opened the book, his ink-stained fingers hovering over the empty page. "We write our own story," he said, his voice reverent. I took a quill from the desk, its feather soft and black, and began to write. The words flowed like a river, each sentence a declaration of who we were and who we would become. "We are not pawns," I wrote, "but authors of our destiny. We have broken the cycle, and with each breath we forge a new path." Jace added a line in a bold, confident hand. "Fire burns, but it also lights the way." Alex finished with a flourish, his ink spilling like a promise across the page. Ink stains the world, but it also tells the story of those who dare to love. The sparrow perched on the edge of the page, its eyes reflecting the ink, the fire, the cedar, the sweat, the blood, the love. It seemed to nod, as if approving our words. We closed the book, the pages humming with the power of our intention. The stone floor beneath us seemed to pulse, a gentle rhythm that matched the beating of our hearts. From that night onward, the loops never returned. The school continued its daily rhythm, but now it was a rhythm we could shape. Jace taught me how to harness the fire within, how to turn anger into purpose. Alex showed me the art of ink, how to capture emotions on parchment, how to turn words into shields. Together we built a sanctuary beneath the old oak, a place where fire and ink coexisted, where the sparrow sang at dawn, and where the scent of cedar mingled with the sweet aroma of fresh paper. Years later, when I look back on that first loop, I no longer see it as a nightmare but as the catalyst that forged us. The scar on my throat is a badge of honor, the feather charm a reminder of the sparrow's promise, and the Chronicle of Echoes a testament to the power of rewriting one's fate. Now when I stand on the stone steps of the school, the wind tugging at my hair, I feel the heat of Alex's kiss still lingering on my lips, the ember of Jace's fury still glowing in my chest, and the soft rustle of pages turning in the distance. I am no longer a pawn. I am the author, the heroine, the keeper of fire and ink. And as the sparrow takes flight, its wings beating against the twilight sky, I know that every loop, every kiss, every scar has led me to this moment, where love, courage, and destiny intertwine, and where the story continues, written by my own hand.